The Monasteries. Stavronikita Monastery. History. The many conflicting tales of the monastery's name hint to the obscurity of its historical origins. In a document by the Protos Nikephoros dating back to 1012 there is the signature of a monk who signs as Nikephoros monk from Stavronikita, while in a 1016 document, the same monk signs as from Stavronikita. This alludes to the existence of a Stavronikita monastery as late as the first half of the 11th century. According to archaeologist Sotiris Kadas, this means that the Stavronikita monastery was one of the monasteries that were founded or built during the first years of organized monastic life on Mount Athos. This early part of the monastery's history ended approximately during the first half of the 13th century when the monastery was deserted due to constant pirate raids as well as due to the tremendous impact caused by the Fourth Crusade to the whole of the Byzantine Empire. The deserted monastery came initially under the jurisdiction of the Protos and later under the jurisdiction of Kutlu Monastery, and later Philathea Monastery, and functioned as a skete. In 1533, the monks of Philathea sold Stavronikita to the abbot of a Thesprotian monastery, Gregorios Giromariatis. In 1536, a patriarchal edict by Patriarch Jeremias I reinstated Stavronikita's status as one of the monasteries of Athos, bringing their total number to 20. Therefore Stavronikita became the last officially consecrated monastery of Athos and is usually referred as the last monastery to be added to the Atonite hierarchy. The Chapel of Saint Demetrius, built in 1770. Gregorios Giromariatis eventually left his monastery in Thesprotia and permanently settled in Stavronikita. In subsequent years he expended great efforts to rebuild and expand the monastery. He built a surrounding wall, many cells, as well as the monastery's Catholicon. After the death of Gregorios in 1540, the renovation was continued by Patriarch Jeremias himself out of love and respect for Gregorios. An extraordinary feature of the monastery during this era is the fact that while most of the Atonite monasteries had already largely adopted the so-called idiorhythmic lifestyle, a semi-eremitic variant of Christian monasticism, Stavronikita was founded and continued to function long after as on the principles of Cenobitic monasticism. The subsequent history of the monastery was marked by the fact that it always remained small in comparison to other Atonite monasteries, both in property and in number of monks. Despite the repeated aid by the Atonite community as well as by important benefactors, such as Archon Servopoulos in 1612, the monk Marcos in 1614, the people of Kou in 1628, Thomas Klados in 1630 and the Prince of Wallachia, Alexandrouica from 1727 to 1740, the monastery's evolution was constantly hampered partly by quarrelings with nearby sketes and monasteries, most notably with Kutlu Monastery over matters of land property and more importantly by two great fires in 1607 and in 1741 that burnt Stavronikita to the ground. However, the monastery continued to grow. In 1628 the Catholicon was renovated and in 1770 the monastery's well-known aqueduct was built along with some of its chapels, such as the Chapel of Saint Demetrius at the monastery's graveyard, the Chapel of the Archangels and the Chapel of the Five Martyrs. During the Greek War of Independence in the early 19th century, Stavronikita, as well as the whole of Mount Athos, experienced harsh times. The monastery faced a harsh economic situation due to extraordinary debt that helped fund the war, while its monks were scattered after the Ottomans invaded Athos. Therefore the monastery, along with some other Ottonite monasteries, was deserted, and so were many of its holdings in Wallachia, Moldavia and elsewhere. This situation lasted for about a decade, after which the Ottomans left Athos and any monks that had survived started returning to the monastery. However, the monastery's prosperity was again endangered by three great fires in 1864, 1874 and 1879 that caused great damage. The monastery was rebuilt, but the monks became largely indebted again, which led to further decline. This situation was partly reversed by the efforts of the abbot Theophilos, a monk formerly from Vatapedi. The arrival of a new brotherhood in 1968 saw its conversion from an idiorhythmic monastery into a kenobium. The election of Abbot Vasilios and the reversion of the monastery to the kenobitic style greatly influenced the revival of monastic life at Stavronikita, which thus obtained a new lease of life.